Just set the bird down here.
Next on Wildlife Emergency.
I think we've got a fracture or dislocation here.
Doctors fight to repair the fractured wing of a bald eagle.
You brought us a baby?
A baby rabbit.
A baby bunny snatched from the jaws of a Rottweiler struggles to survive. A broken turtle becomes a bionic marvel.
A turtle shell that's broken is exactly analogous to a broken bone.
And a tiny screech owl tries to win its freedom.
Good job, Woody.
What we're doing is we're pushing them to be the Olympic athlete that they need to be to survive in the wild.
Take them on into radiology.
We've got a problem here.
Right.
We have the opportunity to give these animals a second chance.
But he's a little one.
He's a very small one.
Nice, strong heartbeat.
Oh, he's very handsome. With wildlife, humans are a big part of the problem, and I just want to try to be part of the solution.
You need to turn her up a lot more.
You not only need to read the mind of your coworkers, you need to read the mind of your patient.
It's about 5 minutes to go before we hit 3 hours.
To save a wild animal's life and get it back into the wild, that's what it's all about.
At the Wildlife Center of Virginia, injured animals arrive at any hour. But when the animal in danger is an American symbol, the emergency takes on heightened proportions.
Is it a mature bald eagle?
Yes, indeed.
And you just got the call today?
Correct.
Dr. Tracy Neff admits the patient at 9 p.m.
Okay. And the story was that they just found it down on the ground?
They found it in a marsh.
Game Warden Dallas Neal was called to the rescue.
2 o'clock this afternoon, we had a call from the sheriff's office of an injured eagle. Sure enough, the eagle would not fly on its own. We cornered him into a bank up against the marsh, and we were able to capture him.
Just set the bird down here. We're going to get a weight on him first, and then we'll go ahead and get him out. Did you see any bleeding or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Okay. Come on, come on, come on. It's
After
okay.
days in the marsh and hours in transport, the bird is frightened and confused. While one wing unfolds to a breadth of 3.5 feet, the other
you can let
remains
go of him.
cradled next to its body.
This elbow doesn't feel good. Did you hear that crunching? I think we've got a fracture or dislocation here. There's a lot of soft tissue swelling, and the elbow, unfortunately, is a very common joint that's injured in raptors. He suffered some sort of direct blunt trauma to that elbow. He may have flown into something, may have been hit by a car, kind of bounced off a car. It's hard to say exactly what happened.
X-rays pinpoint the damage.
This joint is abnormal. He's got a dislocation.
With a dislocated elbow, the bird's wing is useless. And without surgery, the bald eagle will never fly again.
Most of the animals that come in here are here because of humans. Their dogs or cats have attacked them, or a car has hit them, or somebody shot them, or whatever. And I just feel that with wildlife, humans are a big part of the problem, and I just want to try to be part of the solution. It's all right, big guy.
A complicated and risky operation, the bird's only hope for survival in the wild, is scheduled for the morning. The new day brings another patient to the center.
You brought us a baby?
A baby rabbit.
Oh, it's a very little one.
Yeah.
This baby rabbit was rescued from the mouth of Mrs. Andrews' pet Rottweiler.
How long have you had it?
Since last night.
Since last night.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do the best we can for him.
I know it's awful teeny, but hopefully there's a good chance. And we said a nice prayer for it, so hopefully it'll make it.
He was in a dog's mouth, but I didn't see any marks on him.
Head veterinarian Ned Gentz and veterinary technician Sarah Sneed carefully evaluate the new patient.
Okay, holding still for me, Sarah.
As still as I can hold a little tiny rabbit. He's got some fur, some little facial features. He's got little whiskers.
But he's a little one.
He's a very small one. This is
The younger they are, the harder they are.
not a good age.
He'd be better off if the dog hadn't found him and brought him home. His home is with his mom, not here.
Snuggle them up there. They're just very easily stressed, and we don't handle them quite as well as their mothers do.
At 3 days old, the bunny is hungry, dehydrated, and so fragile that a normal human voice can literally scare it to death. Caregiver Andrea Bausch will take on the challenge of keeping this bunny alive.
She's really, really young, really fragile. That's why baby bunnies are so hard to rehab, because they take a lot of time. You can even have a bunny that weighs, 120 grams and ready to be released, and it'll die. Perfectly healthy, and it'll die almost always from stress. Just from being in captivity or from too much noise. Because she's so young, you could see she just has a little bit of fur on her, so she really doesn't have the means to regulate her body temperature. That's why she's in an incubator on a heating pad, and when we feed her, we keep her covered, because she's so little, her body temperature could go down pretty quick.
The bunny's ability to accept Andrea as her surrogate mother over the next 48 hours will determine the fate of this tiny patient.
Go ahead and sit him down.
The risky surgery is about to begin on the bald eagle.
If you want to start the
Okay,
anesthesia.
I'll take it.
As the time approaches, Dr. Ned and Sarah begin to prepare the surgical site.
If this was a dog or a cat, this surgical site would have to be clipped with barber-type clippers. But birds, you can't clip because they have feathers, not hair, so we're going to need to pluck. It adds to our anesthesia time, which is a problem, because one of the goals of surgery is to minimize anesthesia time.
One of the most painful things for a bird is pulling his feathers out. So his heart has gone down a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that his anesthesia level is too deep. They're notoriously poor anesthetic risks. They tend to behave badly under anesthesia. They don't like to go to sleep, they don't like to stay asleep, and it's very easy for them to get too deep.
With anesthesia itself putting the bird at risk, the team knows that it must move quickly to bring this eagle through the operation alive. Back in the intensive care ward, the patient has taken a turn for the worse. Andrea keeps a steady watch and hopes for a sign that its appetite improves.
Today, this bunny is still having some difficulties. She's supposed to be eating around 2 cc's of milk, but she's just right now really willing to take about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2. I feel very inadequate almost, because I'm trying to replace her mom, who would be doing a much better job. All we can do right now is just keep trying to get some food in her, make sure she doesn't drop in weight, monitor her feces, make sure she's not having any severe diarrhea, and keep her warm and quiet, and just, hope that she's got the strength to pull through, and the next couple days are really going to be important.
Oh, he's very handsome. He's handsome. Look how red he is.
In the examination room, a turtle with a broken shell is evaluated by Dr. Ned and Dr. Tracy. Compiling a patient history, Dr. Ned deduces the turtle's gender.
In the eastern painted turtle, the males usually have much longer nails on their front feet. And the reason for that is the male waves his claws like this in front of his potential girlfriend to impress her. And since these nails are kind of short, we think she's probably a she turtle. A 1-pound turtle. Hey, bud. I really like turtles. Turtles are really interesting animals. They're dinosaurs, unchanged for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
An ancient animal, this turtle has had a modern accident. It was run over by a speeding car, which badly damaged its shell.
This crack on the leading edge of his carapace here is the worst one. You can see it's displaced maybe a 1/4 inch. Basically, a turtle shell that's broken is exactly analogous to a broken bone. So it's kind of like doing orthopedic surgery. The big crack in his carapace on the top.
For this turtle to be released, the shell repair must be perfect. As surgery approaches, the question is, can medical technology compete with Mother Nature?
Now, this story started about 2 years ago when a lady was driving down the road and the cars were going back and forth, and she noticed there on the side of the road a little owl a little screech owl.
Whenever speaking to children about conservation, I tell the story of an old friend, Woody the screech owl, hit by a car.
And he was sitting there beside the road, and the cars were going by, and the feathers were blowing, and you could tell he was really, really hurt. And so she stopped.
When Woody was brought to the Wildlife Center, he was blind by all indications as a result of the trauma to his head. The staff was sure that Woody would never go back to the wild. For 2 years, Woody was housed as a captive bird at the center and became a part of its environmental education program. But his caretakers felt that Woody wasn't happy.
Woody spent most of his time just sitting in the screech owl house. He would not really move around very much at all. He wouldn't even acknowledge your presence if you'd go in there and clean his cage or even feed him. And then this had been going on for quite a long period of time. And one day it was just noticed that it looked like maybe he was getting his sight back.
He flew out of his hide box and onto the smallest branch, and he didn't miss a beat. So I said, I think this owl can see more than we think.
When the education staff came and told us that they thought Woody could see again, it was time for the veterinary staff to take a look.
He can see shapes, and he certainly knows when you open the cage door.
Why don't we move him to a bee pen?
See how he does?
Yeah.
And the decision was made then, well, let's see that. Let's take him up to the flight pens and fly him and see how he does landing on perches that are quite a bit of distance apart.
Woody flew well, and it was clear that his sight had substantially returned. But after 2 years in captivity, it was now up to his caretakers to enroll Woody in an intensive training program.
To be a wild animal, you have to be a tip-top athlete. And what we're doing is we're pushing them to be their best, to be the Olympic athlete that they need to be to survive well in the wild.
Now the little screech owl faced the greatest challenge of his life, to learn to be wild again. If unsuccessful, Woody could never go free. As the turtle operation begins, Dr. Ned and Dr. Tracy struggle with a special problem of sedating the patient, who can hold her breath for 30 minutes. First, an injection is given.
Oh, that stings. Ouch.
Sorry. This stuff does sting. It's acidic.
Then, gas anesthesia is administered through a tube, which must be taped to the turtle's mouth.
Very nicely done. Perfect.
As drill holes are made in its shell, a tongue depressor is used to protect the turtle's vulnerable body.
You'll see where I'm locating my holes, kind of equidistant from the edge as well as the fracture line.
Right. Are you through?
Not quite yet. No, I'm through.
Yep.
Next, special surgical wire is used to pull together the fractured shell.
Stand the turtle up for me. I'll give our turtle a big breath, and then we'll disconnect him until I get the wire through.
Once Dr. Ned takes the turtle off anesthesia, he must work quickly to complete the wiring before his patient awakens.
Just about that tight. Boy, oh boy.
That's beautiful.
That's not bad, isn't it?
But successfully completing the wiring is only the first step. Before Dr. Ned can pronounce this turtle good as new, a crucial stage remains.
I'll just give you a quick look at her.
For the baby bunny, the last 24 hours under Andrea's care have brought welcome results. Though still weak, it can now be taken out of the hospital, where it will be cared for by volunteer Gwen Johnston in her own home.
The goal of the center is to get baby bunnies and all orphans out to the rehabilitators as soon as possible, because we find that one-on-one care is really the ticket for their success.
As a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, Gwen is dedicated to making a difference.
I feel an obligation because most of the animals that I get come to me through human activity. Either they get hit by a car or someone's cat gets them. Very rarely is it a natural event that brings the babies and the injured wild animals into our hands.
Observing the center's feeding protocol, Gwen will provide round-the-clock care for the fragile baby bunny.
She's made it through a dog attack. She's made it through a long, bumpy trip home here, and she was perky when I looked at her, and she ate for me. If we can get through the next 7 days, I can probably say, yes, she's going to make it, okay? But it'll be one day at a time.
With a steadily growing appetite, Gwen's little patient, now 7 days old, continues to improve. Hours into the operation on the bald eagle, the surgery is proving more difficult than expected. The dangerous effects of the anesthesia continue to mount, and time is running out. As surgery proceeds, the damage to the joint is all too clear.
A lot of the muscles and tendons and connections and things had been destroyed to the point where the joint was just sort of popping in and out by itself and with very little pressure.
It's still not in. The radius looks like it's approximating its position, but
The
ulna's nowhere near where it's supposed to be. So let's take another feel. We can tell by the excessive motion that this bird has in his elbow joint that he has more soft tissue damage inside than we would like to see. So his prognosis is not good.
As the minutes tick by and the danger of prolonged anesthesia continues to mount, Dr. Ned struggles to realign the injured elbow.
So if I'm going like that, but that's not closing, yeah, there's that big gap. It's still there.
It's still there. I feel like we've been here for days. Well, we had about 5 minutes to go before we hit 3 hours of anesthesia. How far you want to push it?
I'm gonna keep going.
My priority is to make sure that the bird is only anesthetized as long as is safe for him. And I was very afraid that it would take another 2 hours, and at the end of that 2 hours, he would have successfully fixed the wing, and I wouldn't be able to wake the bird up.
We shift the bird this way a little bit.
The reason I didn't back out sooner was because I really wanted to fix this bird's wing. The deeper I got into this poor bird's elbow, the more I realized that the amount of reconstruction needed was unrealistic. I'm giving up on fixing this bird's elbow.
It is simply too dangerous to continue, and a weary Dr. Ned brings the surgery to a halt.
Try to make it stiff?
I'm going to try to make it as stiff as I can.
Okay. Are you going to put any pins in it or not?
No.
Okay. Sorry, bird.
I hoped that I was going to fix that bird's elbow well enough that he was going to fly again. Unfortunately, the damage was so great that the bird's elbow was not repairable. While I'm thrilled that this particular eagle did make it through the prolonged anesthesia, it does sadden me that I wasn't able to perform the repair that I wanted to. I'll try to find this bird a home, but I would have been much happier if I could have made this eagle fly again.
For now, the bird's home is the Wildlife Center, where within hours it is thrown off the effects of the anesthesia and begins to mend.
Here, Woody, take off.
Today, caretaker Rose Jennings gives Woody his final flight
Come
exam.
on, Woody.
To win release, he must pass it with flying colors.
He should be nice, strong beats. They're going to be fast, strong beats, not wobbly, and he's doing that great. Come on, Woody. I guess. Good, Landon.
Rose carefully evaluates Woody's stamina, speed, and the ease with which he maneuvers.
He's not veering to one side or the other when he's landing. It's a direct land, nice and flat, you know, so he's just softly landing too, and that's good.
Looks like he's panting a little bit now.
Notice how you can't hear him, Alexis? I think that's the really cool thing about it, how you can't.
because you can hear the hawks when they fly.
There you go.
He's flying a lot more than he
Yay,
was
up on the
before.
perch.
Some animals just never give up. It just doesn't matter how long they've been in captivity. It doesn't matter the extent of their injuries. They just don't quit.
Good job, Woody.
Yeah, he's doing really well.
Based on my observations, he lands well, his flying is level, he has passed our test where we see if they can still kill and recognize their prey. And based on all that, I think I'm going to recommend that he be released sometime in the future. He may need to build up just a little bit more endurance, but I think he's ready to go.
Okay, lift it up for me, please. The patch.
As Dr. Ned continues to work on his turtle, a critical medical ingredient is brought into the operation: glue.
The key point here is to not get your epoxy in the fracture lines, or that will interfere with healing.
To make the shell watertight, fiberglass patches must be applied.
We'll trim off those edges.
Now, how long is it going to take for this to heal completely?
Completely, probably about a year, because reptiles do everything slow. But this turtle can be released, and this patch will be watertight. And as the patch slowly wears and finally falls off, by the time that happens, in about a year's time, the turtle will be completely healed underneath. Our turtle shell repair is completed. Went real well. She's pretty awake. The cracks are all patched with the fiberglass cloth. It would appear that she's watertight. Here at the edge of the water doesn't seep up underneath my patch. This animal should be able to be released in maybe a week.
With excellent prospects for recovery, this bionic turtle is recuperating well, slow and steady, at a healthy turtle's pace.
All right, Woody.
I think Woody is doing really well. You exercised him this morning, Rose. What do you think?
He's doing really great. He's got good endurance.
After Woody the Screech Owl has passed his final flight test, his caretaker, Rose, confers with her colleagues. The staff must now assess whether he's truly ready to go.
He seems to hit all the perches, like he sees them real well.
Right, he does, and he's passed mouse school
How many
three times.
3 times on mouse school?
Yep, and he's, as far as I can see, he's ready to go.
He can fly up. It's not just flying straight.
He levitates.
He levitates?
Right. He levitates like a screech owl should.
Is he showing any kinds of... Is he nervous of people? Is he flying in the right direction when people are walking in?
If you corner him, he clicks and clacks and hisses and spits. If you walk toward him, he flies away. He doesn't seem to want to be sociable whatsoever.
That would be the only concern I would have, is if he's been in captivity and gotten so used to us that he's not gonna wild up out there. So as long as he's acting like that.
He acts like a wild bird.
I think he's ready to go.
You get to get released today, Woody. Yeah, you get to be free. Oh, God. It's a mixed day. It's a sad day because you've been working with him for 2 or 3 years, but it's a really fantastic thing to see him go where he belongs, which is in the wild. Kind of hope personally that kind of stays in this area.
Hiking into the woods, Woody's friends and trainers seek the perfect place for a little screech owl to make his new home. At long last, Woody's moment has arrived.
All right, little guy. Here you go. Back home.
Okay, Woodster.
He's getting far away from us. All right. Good. Good for him. Back home where he belongs.
You always wonder how they're going to do, but when you see one dodging and weaving to get around branches and trees, you know he's 100%. So we have every reason to believe that Woody is going to be fine.
To see him fly strong and true and through the trees, so you knew not only his eyesight was well, but that his muscle tone was really good. He was in condition to go back to the wild. I was apprehensive about that, whether he was in a good enough condition, but he is. And he looked good. It was tremendous.
Good job.
It's what it's all about. This is what the purpose of the Wildlife Center is, and our purpose here. It just makes us really joyful to see these guys get out of here.